Let's explore how rejecting others can backfire. A meditative perspective. This morning's lesson, yes, this is how I've spelt this morning today. This morning's lesson is drawn from a question from a good-hearted viewer. This individual wrote, "Is it normal to feel enlightened?" Take two. Is it normal? Woof, just washed my mouth and can't do a thing with it. Take 47. Is it normal to fear enlightenment a little? Well, I have a very small sample size, but in my own life, yes. I remember back in the 90s, this is probably about 96-ish, maybe 95. So I was my spiritual journey began to formalize and crystallize. And I began working with a traditional prayer of bodhicitta. And there are many, many, many prayers of bodhicitta. I'm going to paraphrase this one that I haven't practiced for a long time. May become a Buddha for the benefit of all. And being someone with ADHD, being someone with compounded rejection dysmorphia, I was scared that I became a Buddha. My fiance would stop loving me and I would be alone. And for someone with ADHD, loneliness feels like death. Because of the whole dopamine thing. It's kind of like if a normal person had a bowl and if someone with ADHD has a sieve, they pour in a ladle of dopamine in the bowl and it's just fine. They pour a ladle of dopamine in the sieve and your shoes get wet. Well, so for someone without dopamine, it does feel like you're dying. And it's supposed to feel that way. It's supposed to drive us towards survival-oriented issues. So for me, where I was at that point, the thought of my fiance leaving me was terrifying. But I did it anyway, and I moved forward. And eventually she did, several years later, about 6 or 7 years later. So, but that wasn't because I had become a Buddhist, because I learned how to do the unforgivable sin, which in her eyes was learning how to say, no, thank you. You see, she married a milquetoast wimp with so many rejection issues that I would say yes to things I didn't want to say yes to. And I learned how to politely assert myself. That was it. She had no more use for me. Now, it could be argued that my journey on the Buddha's path helped me to evolve to the point where I could respectfully and gently assert myself. But truthfully, that was a relationship that was time for me to go. And me asserting myself was scary and uncomfortable. And me leaving that relationship was even more scary and even more uncomfortable, but necessary. Humans are always growing, ever changing. And if two humans aren't on a similar trajectory, they could grow in different directions. That is not uncommon, but that's not due 100% to the Buddha's path. I remember having a conversation with a roommate way back in the 80s, and he was just astonished at his sister's marriage because they had virtually nothing in common other than loneliness and horniness. And so they got together, but they were basically kind sexual roommates to each other as opposed to, best friends for life, as opposed to soulmate type of thing, at least as depicted in movies and novels. So as we go through life, we're people in our life, or well, life is rather like a play, and the actors and the scenery is always changing in that play. And change is an inevitability. And if we try to force ourselves to stagnate, we may be successful to a certain degree from a certain perspective, but that's not going to stop the world around us from not changing, and it's not to stop the people in our lives from not changing. So change is the only constant, as the ancient Romans used to say. So change is an inevitability. Now, we have, as you've heard me mention many times, we have two reward cycles. Good morning, Patricia Snodgrass. To you, I give a psychic hug. So we have two reward systems, reward cycles. We have a dopamine-oriented reward cycle, which says have lots of sex with different people, spread those genes. And then we have an oxytocin-oriented reward cycle that says commit to your friends, commit to your sweetheart, commit to your relatives, build meaningful relationships. That's what's most important. And those two reward systems are in conflict. Let us compare humans to other creatures on the planet. We are not sharp of claw or long of fang. We are not swift of foot or strong of arm. But we have big old brains, and we can cooperate. And whether that cooperation takes place in the form of a pack, or a tribe, or a herd, it enhances our survival. Therefore, anything that can undermine our presence or standing in the pack or tribe or herd is an existential threat. Therefore, any variable in our life could conceivable in the realm of extreme possibility undermine one or more relationships. And that is understandable. Those of us who have experienced the stress of health needs and dopamine issues and perhaps addiction, for us, survival is less of a given than for other folks. Therefore, our need for survival mechanism is stronger and more acute. Therefore, our fear of losing that support system is going to be more acute. It doesn't mean it's more probable. It just means our awareness of it is sharper. Let's continue. To expand, I fear that becoming enlightened may lead to a separation from those who are not. So there's two ways we can explore this. One is the very grotesque experience of extreme religious narcissism, like we see in certain cult leaders, or like we see as described in the wonderful Tim Burton film Sleepy Hollow, and I shall poorly paraphrase, a Bible black villain. But David Koresh would call friends and family and say, "I'm the Messiah. You have to believe in me." Most of us are not quite so direct, but when we look at the Christ, when we look at Lao Tzu, when we look at the Buddha, we don't see that behavior. We don't see ultimatums in saying, if you don't do this and such, I can't love you. We see Jesus hanging out with prostitutes and tax collectors. So we don't see that being an issue in the truly enlightened. But there's another issue, and there's another phase, and it's more subtle, but it's still a bit narcissistic, it's still a bit controlling. It's still a bit rigid, still a bit fearful, still very patriarchal, and it goes like this. I'm on this spiritual path. If you do not join me on this spiritual path, we do like a President Bush. If you're not with me, you're against me. If you're not joining me in this path, then you're opposing me in this path, and you're not good for my enlightenment, therefore I must separate from you. Woof. Once again, that doesn't come from matriarchy, that doesn't come from yin, that comes from yang, and it's not healthy. We don't see that, once again, in the sage or the Buddha or the Christ. But we all have latent rigid tendencies and controlling tendencies and fearful tendencies. Perhaps you remember the movie Steel Magnolias. I remember watching it in the 90s. And once again, a terrible paraphrase is when the very enthusiastic Christian hairdresser says to her boyfriend something along the lines of, well, I'm a Christian and I'm going to go to heaven and I want to spend eternity with my husband, not without my husband. So you better get right with God. Once again, that's a horrible paraphrase. I mean, no disrespect to the screenwriters of that movie, but that's a common sentiment. But that's controlling. We have to give people room and space to be their own people. One time, a student in a live stream asked me, why isn't your partner, practicing during the live stream? Why is she walking in your background? And the answer is, ain't none of your business. Ain't none of my business. I'm not the all-being master of time, space, and dimension. I'm not some a cranky deity demanding a blind obedience. Yuck, that's no fun. Don't want to be that way. So, for any relationship to work, whether it be a work relationship, whether it be a friendship, whether it be a romantic relationship, whether it be a kinship, we cannot indulge our controlling tendencies. One of the takeaways of interdependence and impermanence is that it's a big universe with so many things affecting so many things and being affected by so many things that are just out of our control. When someone tells you you are the master of your own fate, they're mistaken. They're either deluded or they're trying to sell you something. We are not the masters of our own fate. We are going along for a ride that is going to end in death. That is the only certitude. Interdependence and impermanence are the only certitudes. So we cannot control. Well, we cannot directly control the longevity of relationships. I'm sure we can hasten their destruction if we are cruel or mindless. Yeah, we can hasten its destruction, but we can choose to be just as wise and loving as possible, and it's no guarantee that it will work. I used to think that was the case. I used to think that if we were just loving enough and wise enough, it'll all work out optimally. No. You can love someone and still not be able to have a romantic relationship with them. Does that mean we should protect ourselves and build ourselves our own little, brick ourselves up into our own little self-protective bunkers? Well, that would be a very shallow existence. When asked about relationships, if they were an important part of the path, the Buddhists said the relationships are the path. I think that's found in the Dhammapada. I'm not sure. People can make our hearts sing. People can make our hearts ache. There is no healthy, sustainable way of controlling any of them, including ourselves. Now, hey, Michael, how's it going? So, Now, a key to the longevity of a relationship is centered spontaneity. When we have a healthy and consistent practice of mindfulness and meditation, it moves our blood mass from the fearful, from the anxious and aggressive amygdala at the bottom of our brain to the anterior cingulate gyrus just behind our forehead, the seat of empathy. The highest love is spontaneous and uncontrived. The more our choices, utterances, and deeds flow from the effortless effort of love's centered spontaneity, the more delightful our life is. The less that happens, the less delightful our life is. So, when practiced properly, the spiritual path can enhance our relationships, improving their quality and their longevity. But there's so many variables. There's no guarantee. It's scary, but if we're wise and and if we're fortunate, we'll receive the teachings to bring that anxiety into the path of mindfulness and meditation. I look forward to chanting and meditating with you after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I spent more than 8 hours a day, every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of Buddhism so that you would not have to. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. If at any point during the remainder of this morning's live stream you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, simply type your question in the chat window. Let's play with the latest iteration of Shakyamuni's very easy Dzogchen. Let us review the mantra's meaning as well as train in bliss and love and letting go. To do so is remarkably simple. We're going to place our hands in the puckered palm position in front of our chest. Please chant with me. With whom we invoke the example of the Muni Wise One. Maha greatly wise one Muni of the Shakya Soha, wishing enlightenment for all. We're now going to bring the spontaneous play of mind into the path of awareness and letting go. This is known by many terms, including Dzogchen's Great Completion Stage, Sutra Mahamudra, Ati Yoga, and Treksho, which translates from the Tibetan as slice through. So here is the core practice of mantra meditation. During our inhalation, we can silently and mentally recite, relaxing into the awareness of this. Now, a totally reasonable question echoes the wonderful song Epic by Faith No More. What is this? What is this? This simply refers to the present moment experience, whether that experience is of a sight or a sound or a sensation or a flavor or a scent or the like, whether that experience is an emotion or an intention or a thought or a memory or an imagining. So we silently and mentally recite, relaxing to this awareness as we breathe in. What do we do as we breathe out? We physically relax as best we can while chanting this 12-syllable mantra 4 times per breath. Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Swa. 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 As children, the first bicycle we received most likely came with training wheels, which, although were clunky, got the job done. Similarly, this morning's first meditation is going to be somewhat ungainly. Every time we exhale, so what is the key to mindfulness? Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we spontaneously and automatically access and effortlessly access our sympathetic nervous system, which is ensconced within the thoracic region of our spinal cord. It has not evolved to support either mind blanking or concentration, but it has evolved to notice, and to do so vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. And perhaps that vulnerability is being exemplified by the nudity of this archetype. As we inhale, let us silently and mentally recite, perceiving this very turbulent play of mind. And as we exhale, let us silently and mentally recite, relaxing into mind's non-graspable nature. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Swa. 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 Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Eswa. 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 Let us remove the first of two metaphoric training wheels, reducing the length of our contemplative exercise from 12 syllables down to just 3. What is the key to meditation? Well, let's first start with this. Let's begin with a physical mindfulness. As we inhale, let's silently and mentally recite sitting tall. That's instructing our body to generate a vertical traction between our tush and our head. Let's take a deeper look at meditation. Every time we exhale, whether we mean to or not, we automatically access our parasympathetic nervous system, ensconced within the lower lumbar and the tippy top of the cervical region of that same spinal cord. It evolved to help support physical relaxation and mental release, which could be explained figuratively, thusly. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever we experienced during our previous inhalation could begin to feel less graspable. And now let's wade deeper into the waters of figurative language. It could begin to feel as non-graspable as a vast, empty void. What is a real-world example of a non-graspable, vast, empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although is tantalizing to the eye, is intangible to the hand? Perhaps that is why the archetype is depicted as translucent and non-corporeal. Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Esawa. 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 Om Muni Muni Ma 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 muni sowa. 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 A delicious fringe benefit of training in mindfulness and meditation is that our blood mass ceases to congest at our anxious and aggressive amygdala and instead begins to collect at our empathetic anterior cingulate gyrus, just a few centimeters behind our forehead. This is the seat of empathy, the seat of love. Perhaps that is why the archetypes are depicted as beautiful. As we inhale, let us practice mindfulness by silently and mentally reciting, notice this. And as we exhale, let us practice meditation by silently and mentally reciting, relaxing. Om muni muni ma muni sowa. 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 Welcome to this morning's live stream. As we breathe in during mantra meditation, we silently and mentally recite, relaxing into the awareness of this. As we exhale, we physically relax as best we can while striving to chant this 12-syllable mantra 4 times per breath. Om muni muni ma muni sowa. 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 If this doesn't come easy the first time, don't beat yourself up. Practice. I live stream every 12 hours. Practice with me twice a day, and by the end of the week, it'll feel like old hat. Om muni muni ma muni sowa. 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 Let us remove the second of 2 metaphor training rules, reducing the length of our contemplative exercise to just 1 syllable. The easiest way to practice mindfulness is to silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this during each inhalation. And the easiest way to practice meditation is to silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease, which functions as a synonym of relax, during each exhalation. As we observe the archetype, and we notice the cloud-colored gal actively sporting in tantric union with wild abandon, we are reminded that spontaneity trumps contrivance. As we watch our partner, the sky-colored guy, sitting in passively participating in tantric union in a very centered manner, we're reminded that not all spontaneity need to be scattered, the greatest spontaneity being centered. It is taught that the highest love is spontaneous and uncontrived. When our choices, utterances, and deeds flow from the effortless effort of love's centered spontaneity, life can be quite blissful. Now that we've reached contemplative cruising altitude, together as a team, let us meditate as profoundly as Qui-Gon Jinn on Naboo. If you've just joined us, welcome aboard. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. Let us continue with mantra meditation. During the inhalation, silently and mentally reciting, relaxing into the awareness of this. And during the exhalation, physically relaxing as best we can whilst striving to chant this 12-syllable mantra 4 times per breath. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa 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 Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa. Consider, if you will, the names of these tantric archetypes. Known in Sanskrit as Samantabhadra, Samantabhadri, Karma Mundara. Known in, sometimes described in Tibet as Kuntu Zangpo, Kuntu Zangmo, Yabyum. Translated literally as, well, as all good one mother, all good one father in tantric union, and translated figuratively as cloud gal and sky guy doing the hibbity dibbity. Why do we call them the all good ones? Are these gods or goddesses of some vast celestial pantheon? No. These are archetypes reminding us that each of us already has a sympathetic nervous system optimized for mindfulness. Each of us already has a parasympathetic nervous system optimized for meditation. Each of us already has an anterior cingulate gyrus optimized for effortless efforts, centered and spontaneous love. We are already wired to not only practice the Buddha's Eightfold Path, but master it to the point of practicing it spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. There is nothing missing. It's all there. All we need to do is get out of our own way. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa 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 Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa 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 Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa. Welcome to this morning's live stream. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. As we breathe in, let us silently and mentally recite, relaxing into the awareness of this. As we let us physically relax as best we can while chanting the 12-syllable mantra 4 times per breath. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa 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 Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesawa. As we breathe in, let us silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this, and as we exhale, let us silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease, which functions as a synonym of relax. So we flip-flop between silent meditation and mantra meditation. Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Sawa 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 Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Sawa. Whoops, look at that. That was exciting. Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Sawa 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 Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Sawa. Let us look deeply at relaxing into the awareness of this. This is whatever comes up, whether that which comes up is external or internal, physical or mental, pleasurable or painful, interesting or boring, glorious or grotesque. Good morning, Elaine. Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Sawa 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 Om Muni Muni Ma Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Sawa Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Sawa Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Sawa. Welcome to the live stream. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. How do we practice mindfulness? by silently and mentally reciting the demonstrative pronoun this during each inhalation. What is the easiest way to practice meditation? To silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease, which functions as a synonym of relax during each exhalation. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesuwa 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 Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Esawa 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 Om Muni Muni Maha 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 Muni Esawa Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Yesawa. 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 Okay, Elaine, you ask a very good question. So let's see. This is page 35. Control G 35. Hit go to. Now, there's a very strong chance the display is going to go berserk, so I'll do my best to, tend to that as best I can. Okay, so going back over here. So at the beginning of the live stream we reviewed the meaning of the mantra. Together, let's chant. So place your hands in the puckered palm position in front of your sternum. With whom we invoke the example of the Muni, wise one, Maha, greatly wise one, Muni, yea, of the Shaka, Soha, wishing enlightenment for all. There are many names for the Buddha, including Gautama, Siddhartha, Shakyamuni, and the like. So, Shakyamuni translates as sage of the Shakya clan. So this isn't an invocation. We're not trying to get blessings from a real or imagined entity. Only thing we're invoking is the example of the Buddha. Whether the Buddha was real, whether the Buddha was imaginary, he or she serves as an archetype for traversing the spiritual path to completion. And so we wish enlightenment for all beings everywhere. So in all honesty, when we read the magus opus of the individual who first taught Dzogchen, Prahevajra, he taught that mantras were not necessary. I'm really disabled, and so I incorporate mantra into my practice for two reasons. One, so I have the physical vitality to sit and meditate. And number two, because I'm trying to present the teachings in their most efficient form. I'm reminded of the words attributed to Albert Einstein, that any educated idiot can make things more complicated, more difficult, and more violent, but that it takes a lot of courage and a little bit of genius to move in the opposite direction. So following in the footsteps of Prahevajra and Dzogchen Rinpoche, I do my best to present the teachings in their most efficient format. The Buddha taught that once someone has acclimated to sitting, when they can sit comfortably for an hour or so, a few times a day, then they can master the path in as little as 7 days, which is wild. So most people teach systems that take decades or lifetimes to master. A minority of teachers try to help people to master the path toot sweet. So most of us were not raised in yoga class. Most of us were not raised sitting in a meditation posture. So starting at 5 minutes once every 12 hours or so, if you practice that way for a week, and then every week increase the duration of your sitting by 5 minutes per session, then within 16 weeks, you could have become acclimated to sitting and meditation. If during that time you were attending live streams for free on YouTube, live or pre-recorded, you could complete the path. And there's nothing spooky about completing the path. Practicing the path just means practicing the Eightfold Path. Mastering the path just means we get so good at it that we practice it spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively, just like learning how to floss our teeth or tie our shoes. Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Yesowa. 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 Let us now practice silent mindfulness and meditation. Elaine, you are utterly welcome. As I turn my head, I'm looking to the side monitor, which is irrational, but it's something I do. And side monitor is just a fancy term for a smartphone that I have on a stand to the left. Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Yesowa. 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 A little bit faster. Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Yesowa. 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 Om Muni Muni Ma 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 Muni Yesowa. Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Esawa. 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 No worries, no worries. So here's the basic idea. This image exists solely to remind us that every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we effortlessly and automatically access the sympathetic nervous system. A component of our autonomic nervous system. It's not found between our ears, but rather in our spinal cord, in the region corresponding with the thoracic spine, although the artist took a little bit of liberties. It is not evolved to support either mind blanking or concentration, but instead to support the middle ground of simply noticing and doing so vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. This is typified by the nudity of the archetype, this vulnerability to the present moment. Hence, one of the easiest ways to practice mindfulness is to silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this. Let's seal this practice by training in love and letting go. As we breathe in, let us silently and mentally wish, may all master letting go and love. And you'll notice by these subscriptions that this is a reference to the first and second folds of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Yesawa. 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 May all master kind communication, conduct, and commerce, the third, fourth, and fifth folds of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Yesawa. 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 May all master the effortless efforts of love's centered spontaneity. Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Yesawa. 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 We conclude by wishing that all master mindfulness and meditation, the seventh and eighth folds of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Yesawa. 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 If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. Whoops, look at that. In approximately 11 or so hours, I would very much like to... Is it 11 or 10? Well, 6 would be 12. Yes. So in about 11 or so hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's evening meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the force be with you always.